All right, why don't we get started? Good afternoon. It's Mark Jaffe. I am VP of Strategy at Elusive, and I am joined by Wade Lance, Field CTO at Elusive. Nice to see you, Wade.
Hey, Mark. Happy Tuesday, is it?
I think so. You know,
Yeah.
I think you're traveling. Is that true? You're in Miami, so you're out and about today.
Yeah. Greetings from my hotel room in Miami that has all yellow lights, right? So it's like my liver has failed or I have jaundice or something. So I'm all
Okay.
yellow. It's what you get.
You look fine, Wade, and it's nice to talk to you again. For those of you who don't know Wade, Wade is, as I said, Field CTO of Elusive, but he's somebody I really enjoy talking to. And I'm really looking forward to today's session. So thanks for joining us. We're going to be talking about the identity, the AIR, Analyzing Identity Risk Research Report. I don't know if you can all see that at home. I've printed it and read it, and I'm actually really impressed by it. And so I'm looking forward to the session with you, Wade. We can go through some of the findings and talk about the report. And I know folks who've joined are interested in learning more about the identity risks in their environment. As I understand it, the research was a culmination of data collected from about 27 medium and very large organizations. It was done with real data, as I've been told. You'll have to highlight more. And what I think I found most surprising, and I'll start with this, is that the research found that 1 in 6 enterprise endpoints holds identity risks that attackers can leverage. So 1 in 6, it's a pretty scary number, Wade.
Yeah, it's a little surprising, right? One of statistics, who's to say, right? 1 in 6. The part that made that surprising is that I think you're right, 26, 27, 28 organizations in that range, I think.
Yeah.
All of those organizations had very mature cybersecurity and identity practices, right?
Huh.
They're all using privilege account management solutions. They've all got professional security teams. So to be that consistent, to find that level of identity risk on that many endpoints fairly consistently wouldn't be a surprise in less mature security organizations, but honestly was in organizations with a solid.
Wait, you talk about mature organizations. Like what industries is this data from? Just to help us understand and our visitors here understand who these people are.
Yeah, it's a broad spectrum. Lots of financials, right? So banking and insurance and whatnot. Fair number of manufacturing and retail, institutional industry, healthcare, pharmaceuticals. So it kind of spans the spectrum of what you'd expect to see. Not a whole lot of government or military included in this particular snapshot, but on a commercial side, pretty broad. I will say probably a little heavier weighted in financial services, which is where you get some of that more mature security practice and more mature identity practice, right? So you wouldn't expect in the more mature organizations to see those numbers, and we consistently did. Yeah.
Amazing, amazing. You know, I've got a bunch of questions for you, and I'd love to use the time to ask you more. I should point out that those who have joined us today, I've got the chat window up. Feel free to join me in asking Wade questions, and I'll try and moderate and bring your questions to Wade on your behalf. I mentioned sort of my surprise that 1 in 6 endpoints was a pretty big number. You know, that gives attackers a pretty good advantage. They don't strike on the first time, right? They're in 1 in 3 on the second. That was surprising to me. What was most surprising to you from the data?
One of the things that was most surprising to me is the few number of steps that were necessary to get to privileged accounts. I have to say that I expected to see exposed identities and credentials that were of user level, right? And I anticipated we would see that. It was surprising to see the ease with which attackers would have access to privileged accounts. And I think that it was a bit of a surprise also to customers and prospects who saw the data. And again, that was consistent, right? So in the report, we used organizations between, say, 2,000 endpoints to 70, 80, 90,000 endpoints. I think the
Okay.
largest environment we had about 90,000 endpoints in it. So across that broad of a spectrum, we anticipated seeing pretty stark differences. The larger organizations, maybe more tooling, more personnel, more mature practice and process around identity governance. And in fact, across the board, fairly consistent. Privileged identities accessible, 1 in 6 systems. Bit of a surprise.
So I'm sure our audience, if they haven't read the research report, is dying to now get a little deeper, and maybe, Wade, I can take you there. The research report buckets these risks, and we should maybe start at the next level down. It talks about 3 types of risks. Why don't we just start there, if you could? What are those 3 types of risks?
Happy to. So there's really 2 types of risks, and then a way in which they're accessible, right? So we'll look at the primary 2, and then the third is an add-on. So the first type of identity risk is a misconfiguration, right? This is where an identity has inherent in the identity privileges that it really shouldn't have. So we're thinking about service accounts that have interactive login, right? Not a good practice. We're thinking about other types of shadow administrators, right? Regular users, domain users, let's say, that don't participate. They're not a member of a privilege group, and yet through access control lists, right, through direct ACL or through nested group privileges, this user in fact has a very high level of privilege, and that privilege could be excessive, right? So domain user through direct ACLs in a couple of different instances had DC sync privileges, which is the ability to replicate domain controllers and dump the data. So you're talking about really, really, really strong privilege. And so this issue of misconfiguration of accounts is a class of issue that we look at. The other is unmanaged, right? And this is where an account with privilege, we recognize it has privilege, and yet it's not really being managed. Passwords not being cycled, credentials not being vaulted in a way that would meet security best practices. So that unmanaged and that misconfiguration, those are the fundamental issues. The third issue is this issue of exposure, where an unmanaged or misconfigured account is now left laying around, if you will, on servers and workstations, such that if an attacker gets a hold of one of those systems, they're in a position to scrape and gather that credential or identity and potentially reuse it. And that's where it gets us back to that 1 in 6 systems, right? You start saying, well, yeah, how often do we see unmanaged or misconfigured credentials or identities laying around where someone could get at them? Well, it's about 1 in 6 systems, right? And that's a tall number. It's a cause of concern, and fundamentally, it's why attackers that do establish a beachhead. We did a conversation a while back with Andre over at Security Scorecard, and he's got 20 years of experience doing post-breach investigations, and he hit me with a statistic that was really astounding, and that's that post-breach, initial breach, attackers move laterally in 5 minutes or less 60% of the time. So 60% of the time when an attacker gets a beachhead of the environment, they have escalated privileges or use privilege identities to move to ancillary systems within 5 minutes, which is a huge number. And this is why we see it, Mark.
Well, wait. Why are we surprised? And if anyone is, I think in there lies the answer. Why are we surprised that attackers are leveraging identity risks like the ones we're discussing as their top attack vector? It seems like this is easy. I remember it caused me to think about years ago in cyber, we were all thinking about the next zero-day exploit. And of course, those are still reality, but much less so. And it almost feels like just attackers have, because identity's become their number one attack vector, they don't need to do it. Is there other reasoning why attackers have moved? Is it just because these identity risks are so easy to leverage? Is it that
Well, I
simple?
think it's a two-part answer, right? So certainly on the one side, the prevalence of ways to interact with system using privileged identity is certainly an easy one, right? That's the easy button. I would say too that as security teams have matured and practices have matured. Remember when NotPetya came out and people got slammed and started to take a serious look at vulnerability management, patch management, processes, and a lot of that matured. As you start to mature those processes and do better about anomaly detection and do better with patch management and system hardening and whatnot, those tools become less and less effective. If I've got 6 months to take advantage of a known vulnerability, hey, why not? If I've got 6 days as an attacker, it becomes harder to do. So as security has become more and more proficient at the meat and potatoes of vulnerability management or behavioral analytics, it kind of leaves open one door. As an attacker, if I get a hold mark of your system and there's a privileged credential in an RDP save session, I do not have to be a sophisticated attacker to open your RDP client when you're not there and look at it and go,
Ouch.
oh, that's easy. I can RDP to that system. Number one, takes no malware, right? So your EDR system has nothing to detect on. I'm running native tools using local identities. Number two, the behavioral systems are not going to have a problem with that because by definition, this is something that happens on this system. Right? This has happened before. It's just happening again. Nothing to see here. And I think attackers are very aware of the security world, what our capabilities are. They've adapted. And so this is the new reality. If you, as a security organization, if you have privileged identities laying around in the environment, attackers get beachheads. They have great tooling that will expose that to them. Right, there's a whole host of tools that they can use to identify automatically.
Like what, Wade? Give us examples here. Give us the goods. What are they doing?
Yeah, so a bunch of old school tools, Mimikatz, the classic memory introspection tool, still a winner, right? Still a great winner for memory introspection. Native Windows tools, right? Windows Credential Editor, right out of some of the service packs for Windows Credential Editors. It's a great tool. There's an increasing popularity of some security tools. People using Bloodhound open source as a great way to look around and show me, hey, I've got this beachhead. Where can I go with it? A great single host tool. We even saw an instance of Cobalt Strike here where an organization had paid a customer of Cobalt Strike to sell them the license so that an attacking community could build Cobalt Strike into their code. So there's a ton of tools that are out there and they continue to be developed and used. But let's face it, native Windows tools make this pretty simple. It does not take a bunch of tools to go look into Open Putty and go look at the save sessions. What's in it? Right? Open regedit and go look at what FileZilla sessions are saved. Right? This is not complex work.
Wait, I'm gonna interrupt for a second here because Steve has asked a question. I want to make sure we get to our audience's questions. Our first question. Thanks, Steve, for asking. You ask, did I get this right? 1 in 6 organizations have privileged credential exposure.
Not quite. So the report is specific. So thanks, Steve, for the question. We'll be more specific. 100% of the organizations, and was it 26, 27 organizations, Mark, in the report?
I think it's 27.
27. Okay, so 27 organizations between 2,000 endpoints and 90,000 endpoints, everything in between. 100% of those organizations had identity risk resident in their systems, 100%. Of the systems, it was over 1 million systems that we did as a part of this assessment from those organizations. 1 in 6 of the hosts, workstations and servers, 1 in 6 of the hosts contain identity privilege. So as an attacker, if I do a phishing campaign and I get access to 2 systems or 3 systems, my chances of stumbling across a system that has some form of privileged identity that I can take advantage of is really high, especially when I don't have to do the phishing campaign myself. I can go online and buy those hosts from someone who's already done that work. I can say, hey, oh, look, I'm searching for this organization. They're a financial, they're a pharmaceutical, they're a, by name. I can go out in the dark web and I can hunt for an organization, say, sell me hosts. And someone says, hey, I've run a phishing campaign. I've got 20 hosts in this environment where I've got backdoored access to. If I can go buy 20 beachheads into an environment, and on average, 1 in 6 systems have some form of exploitable privileged identity, the chances of me not being able to move in that environment are really, really small.
By the way, it causes me to think maybe on a future discussion, we should ask questions about how are all these credentials ending up in the dark web for sale? Because it's interesting because they're being purchased, they're being used, and they're being used in a way where they got a 1 in 6 chance of being successful with these kind of mature security organizations. So, Steve, go ahead.
There's only one point to make there, which is, listen, if the organization that breaches your organization, if the attacking organization that breaches your organization doesn't internally know how to leverage the value of these credentials, no worries, they will sell it to somebody who does, right? The more sophisticated organizations have some clarity, like they will sell identities saying, I stole these identities from, I've got beachheads in this organization with this level of identity available, and they'll sell it knowing that they're selling privileged identity access along with the beachhead. So in many cases, the organization that does the breaching work doesn't have the expertise themselves to exploit those conditions. So they just sell that off to somebody who does, and they go back to running their spear phishing campaigns or phishing campaigns because that's their area of expertise.
It's like a channel partner program, right?
You take a channel partner program, exactly.
So Wade, I want to bring us back if I can. You were talking about unmanaged, misconfigured, and exposed risks. I thought that was really interesting, and maybe we can drill into some examples of those. But actually, before we go there, we were talking about 1 in 6. It sort of seems sort of something else that I was thinking about as I was reading this. Sort of surprising. Organizations have put a lot of money into MFA, investing in PAM deployments. You mentioned earlier that these organizations had deployed PAM and MFA. So how is this possible? How are these stats possible, given there's been a lot of investment in controls to prevent this from happening to privileged credentials?
Yeah, it's and I think this is where people go to when we talk about this research and talk about these findings. We mention privileged identities, and they look at their tool set and say, what are we doing about privileged identities? Oh, yeah, we have a privileged account management platform that we've used and leveraged, so we're good in this space. It's like, no, you're not, right? So the reason is the gray areas, the fuzzy gray areas between the systems, right? So like PAM is great at what it's great at, right? And it's great at privileged accounts in Active Directory that you know about.
Okay.
If you don't recognize the account as being privileged, you don't vault it. So that's an unmanaged issue. If the administrators, and this is kind of one of the dirty secrets about PAM, is that there are certain operators that, are very happy to give themselves accounts that they don't vault. Because if the PAM system is being upgraded or it's broken or something like that, I need a privileged account that allows me to take actions to work on those, or there have to be backdoors. And so the question becomes, okay, well, where are those backdoor credentials being used and stored? Because we've seen that before. People are aware of these exception accounts to the PAM solution and they need them, which is great, obviously, but God forbid those are left laying around places, right? You can't tolerate that, and it happens more often than we'd like to. There are other places, again, where the PAM solution just isn't focused on, right? Like application level credentials stored in browsers.
Okay.
If you're running a custom application and people can store the credentials in the browser, I mean, the PAM solution is just not gonna focus in on that.
So it sounds like you describe it as sort of this gray area, and it just seems like there's a lot of gray here if it's 1 in 6 endpoints. So I'm going to use that if I can. I don't think I have another question yet, but audience, if you'd like, feel free to chime in and ask. Join me in asking Wade a question. But let's chime in or drill in, Wade, a little bit on the risks. So can you give us? Maybe we'll start with unmanaged because you're sort of talking about PAM there. Can you give us some of the drill down stats that went below the 1 in 6 endpoints to give us some examples of unmanaged risks?
So the numbers start to become painful, but and I don't want to steal the thunder out of the report for those who are going to read the data behind it. But there's some highlights in there, some statistics that I think will be educational. So let's take a notoriously difficult, highly privileged account to manage. A highly privileged account is notoriously difficult to manage, right? Okay. And these would be local Windows administrators, right?
Okay.
Workstations, they're ubiquitous. They have local SAM administrators. They have to be managed. This became so prevalent some years ago that Microsoft came out with a LAPS platform specifically to manage passwords for local Windows administrators. And that's just one kind. That's not a domain account. That's a local SAM account, but that's just one kind of privileged account. And when you start boring into all the ways that could be an issue, 87% of the local admin accounts are not enrolled in any kind of a PAM solution.
I saw that statistic. You're telling me across all of the organizations we saw, or all the organizations or the endpoints, 87% had local admins that were exposed.
87% of the number of local admins. If you got 100 different local admin accounts in your organization, again, it's not consistent in every organization, but on average, if there's 100 local administrators, 87 of them are not being managed. And there's a bunch of reasons for that. One is that LAPS only manages one
local admin account.
One local admin account. So if there's 5 local administrators on that system, LAPS is managing one and the other 4 are unmanaged. And what happens is if someone is issued local administrative privileges, in many cases, maybe they need to install software. So they get temporary local admin. One of the first things someone would do, I mean, now I've never done this, but I've heard other people have done it, is immediately go make another local administrator so that when the domain takes away my local admin rights, I've got a local admin user that I can use to install software. Which, okay, I get it, but in fact, not only can you use that to install software, but so can a malicious actor or malware that gets a hold of the system, right? So,
hey, wait, I've never done this. I've never created another local admin account on my machines. Okay, I just want to go on record. It may not be true, but you know, I'm a little nervous because, in fact, I think there's probably a lot of people out here who've done this, right? Including myself, in all honesty.
So it's not that 87% of systems have unmanaged local Windows administrators, is that if you count up all the local Windows administrators, 87% of them are unmanaged, right? Because there's lots and lots of systems that with more than one local admin, and once they're not being managed, they're not being managed. Here's another example. 21% of the local administrators use the default name.
Yeah, great.
Right?
Yeah, admin, system.
Administrator,
right.
62%, the password was unchanged for more than a year. 17%, the passwords were unchanged for more than 5 years.
So I guess this is just that gray that slips through the cracks.
Well, look, there isn't good auditing infrastructure and tools available today to do this. One could script ADGPOs, log on scripts to do some of this work. It'd be a ton of scripting work to try and get partial information on some of this. Some of the endpoint tools provide this. Again, if you're willing to gather a group of coders and do a bunch of scripting and change it all the time. And it's just, in fairness to the security teams and the identity teams, there just hasn't been good tooling, and which is just being exposed. It's not that people don't care about this. It's not that they're not aware of some of these risks. There hasn't been good tooling to address these kinds of issues. And so we're seeing this vast proliferation of unmanaged accounts that should be managed. But if you don't know they're there, you don't take action on them.
So you've given some interesting statistics on unmanaged, and I've read the report, and there's lots more interesting findings there. But I'd like instead, in the 10 minutes remaining, 10, 15 minutes, in addition to questions we may get from our audience. You mentioned something interesting, which is that there hasn't been good tools to sort of audit and discover for these issues. And obviously, Elusive is doing that somehow to provide this research. Tell us more. How does this work? How did this data come to be analyzed in this report?
So the thing that we're doing that's unique is, number one, we're gathering data from the policy engines, right, from the directory system. So Active Directory, Azure Active Directory, the PAM solutions, we're reading that information and saying, okay, what's the plan? What are you trying to accomplish? What's supposed to happen, right? What are the policies and controls and systems that are in place? But the interesting part of what we're doing is then we're going and looking at the endpoints themselves, workstation and server class systems. And we're gathering information from those hosts. We don't use an agent. We use an ephemeral agent or a dissolvable binary. It's just a one-time hit, gather the information, and send that information up to a centralized system where we can compare what's the plan, what's being managed, what are the policies and controls to, okay, what do we actually see in the real world? Which gives us the attacker perspective, right? And when we inspected those systems, over 1 million systems across 27 organizations, 1 in 6 of those systems had something that was easy to identify and easy to reuse. And that's been the missing piece, honestly. This comparison of the plan, the policy engines, of the directory structures against the actual real world of workstations and servers and what's available. Because if you run out and take laps, let's say, we'll just go back to that when Windows administrators were managing all these accounts, all the administrators, every account named administrator on every single workstation, all being managed by laps. Yeah, but there's dozens and dozens and dozens or hundreds of other local administrative accounts on those machines you're not even aware of that are not being managed, and people are using them, right? So our data comes back and says, hey, these accounts, the password hasn't changed in years. In some cases, there's even a statistic, I won't give the statistic, but there's a statistic about the number of local administrator accounts where the password was never set. It's just blank. So that makes it easy, right?
Hey, Wade, you're a tease now. People have to now read the report to go get some of this data.
Yeah, so it's not just the ones that, when was the password reset, if ever, but it's when was the last time this account was logged on, right? So we're able to produce that level of detail to say, listen, these are the accounts that are not being managed. These are the accounts where the password hasn't been changed in forever. And these are the accounts where someone logged in recently. And that's the value proposition for the security organization, for the identity team, is we can get right focused in on those exposed, and in this case, unmanaged privilege identities that really need attention because they're in use, right? It's not going to take a rocket scientist to figure out that this is exploitable if somebody logged in with it yesterday, right?
Wait, I'm thinking about I'm just doing some basic math here. If this is a big organization and 1 in 6 endpoints has these credentials that are at risk, and it may be more than one, the math turns out there could be a lot of issues out there for security teams to have to now go and manually mitigate all these issues. But of course, I know that there's some automation available to speed the mitigation as well. And I think it's probably worthy to give you just a minute to talk about that.
Yeah, and I think this is kind of the good news in the bad news of the report, right? One of the reasons people don't respond to known risk is that they don't have a manageable tool that would allow
Right.
them to respond to this in a meaningful way, right? If it's raining and my car, the top is down on my car, but all I got's an umbrella and I can't get the, I mean, all I got's an umbrella. I can cover me, but I can't help the cars. The top's down on my convertible, right? And so that was one of the things that was important about the elusive method, is that not only do we audit and surface these conditions, but that same endpoint interaction that we have gives us the capability of remediating a lot of these conditions, right? So whether it's application credentials stored in the browser to highly sensitive applications, the elusive touch on that endpoint, if it's instructed to do so, can pull the credential out of that browser history, simply deny the attacker those goodies. And
Very
so
cool.
on and
Very cool.
dozens and dozens of use cases where it would be bad news if we were just surfacing this risk, but it turns out it's good news because we can not only surface it but also remediate it. And in fairness, the 80-20 rule seems to hold. 80% of the conditions that we find, a quick determination can be made that elusive can just remediate those. 20% of the conditions, like, you know what, this needs a little bit more research, and have the identity team go research on those for a week, and have the security team go research on those for a week, and maybe the vulnerability team go look at some others for a week, and we can come back together, and another 2/3 of those to 3/4 of those can then be remediated. And some of them take a little bit more research, but the speed at which we can bulk remediate a lot of these conditions that security people or identity people take one look at it and go, oh, that's an account we used to use for break fix that we don't even use for anything anymore. Why are those even out there? Hey, let elusive go through and disable those accounts, clean them off the endpoints, problem mitigated in short order. And that's highly encouraging to people that are just getting visibility to this level of risk.
Well, if the risk is great and you can't mitigate it, guess what? There's not much value in knowing about it. So it's great to know there is easy resolution for a lot of this. I'm seeing we're 35 minutes in, so I'll ask one more time if our audience has any questions. Wade, you'd be okay with some questions from the audience?
Yeah. Anything. I'm not watching the chat channel, Mark. So anything people ask, I'm happy to.
So here's a question. There's a question. So what should companies be doing about having multiple local admins? There's a specific question. We're talking about local admins. It seems like there's a specific question, like, what do I do about that? It sounds like maybe someone on the call actually recognizes that they may be in the 87% category here with multiple local admins.
Yeah. So look, you want to maximize what you have, right? And so whatever you're using for management of local Windows administrators, whether that's Labs or CyberArk, or whatever solution you're using, the first thing you want to do is get visibility into which of those are being managed and which are not. And fortunately, you can't really do that from the control plane, right? You can't do it from the policy engine. Labs is managing all that it's being told to manage, right? That's really the first step, is to say, we need to audit this environment and take a look at your endpoints and figure out how many unmanaged local Windows administrators you have, and then make a decision which of these should be managed and which of these should be disabled. And in some cases, the user grouses and says, I need local administrative privileges. And if they can make that case, there are some that do. Let's give that to them at the domain level, not from a local account. Let's give their domain user local admin, so now it can be audited, monitored, right? Revoked if that's the appropriate thing to do. And then let's clean up those accounts. So there's a number of ways to solve it, but step one is getting visibility into where you at, which accounts, who's using them. The conversation starts there.
So Wade, we started by saying that just haven't been good tools to get this visibility. The research says that the visibility that's provided by elusive highlights lots of issues. We know ransomware, reports suggested doubled last year. identity risk is the #1 attack vector. So, attackers are digging in. They're going to take advantage of what is easy pickings. We now have visibility. Are we seeing a trend of companies sort of beginning to take this matter seriously? Like, or organizations still focusing on, right, their vulnerability management program around, exploits and code and apps?
I think mature security organizations are trying to get a handle on this. People are aware of this as an issue. And so the question then comes down to tooling more so than do we have an interest in this? There's all these zero trust initiatives, right? Hey, we're going to focus on zero trust. Well, there is no zero trust without getting a grip on privileged identities. I mean, you don't have identities under control. You don't have any zero trust. Don't waste your time with any of the rest of that, right? There's a lot of facets to zero trust, getting identity under control. So what we've found is that people care and people have initiatives, but there really isn't good understanding out there of all the different kinds of identity risk that are inherent in the organization. That attacker perspective sometimes is somewhat deficient. And so doing these identity risk audits like Elusive does, where we compare both what we see at the control systems and what we see endpoint to endpoint, really changes the conversation from, do I have privileged identity risk? Do we need to tighten things up? Do we need to do better in this space? To, here's where we need to do better. Maybe Active Directory is not full of shadow administrators. Maybe the organization went through a 3-year plan to condense the number of domains, reduce the number of users, refactor all of the groups, and maybe they're just crushing it. They don't have a bunch of shadow administrators, right? So misconfiguration, they're doing pretty good. But then you look at exposure and unmanageability, and that's where the problem is, right? That's where there's unmanaged accounts and they're exposed and left laying around. And so this becomes the right thing. Change the conversation to, do we have this issue, to where do we have this issue, so that we can focus our efforts on being proactive about the problem that we have with identity risk. And when it's 1 in 6 hosts at 100% of organizations, it's not do we have this, it's where do we have it.
Yeah, it was really it was a great report, Wade, and so I'm really commend the team for what I think is fabulous research. I think everyone should take a look. It's available on the Elusive website. It's actually, if folks want to go to the Elusive website and go to the resources tab, it's right there at the top of the list of resources. You also mentioned an identity risk assessment, which is a process for actually getting some visibility in your own environment. So that's available as well. I guess that was a little plug on things that we could be doing to help if folks are reading the research and are concerned about what is the reality of identity attacks. Wade, we've got two more minutes. We'll let people get going. 2 more minutes. What anything we didn't cover? What haven't we covered that you think is important that you'd like to share with our audience?
So here's a thing that surprised me, Mark. In some early instances, when we did these audits and started looking at unmanaged and misconfigured and exposed identities and kind of where that risk was, security and identity teams bristled a little and got, hey, I'm a professional, I work hard, I care, we use best practice. Like, I've been doing my job, and we have these findings. I'm concerned about that, how this reflects on us as an organization, right? Me and my team, my people, our work. And what's been interesting is to see that people don't have to feel that way about this kind of an issue. Organizations that get compromised based on privileged identity being accessible in the organization, there's ramifications for that. As security and identity professionals, this is our job. But to go to management and say, listen, we've become aware of another way to view our organization and to get the attacker's perspective on our systems and to tighten our existing controls around privileged identity, identity management. And this new visibility is going to help us take our identity program to the next level. I think what has been interesting to me is that I think some identity and security people were concerned about how the reporting would reflect on them. But in fact, what we've seen is that CISOs, CTOs, CIOs, senior management has been very, very encouraged to this proactive movement on the part of the people responsible to say, hey, we're taking a different look at this. We're seeing this in a new way. We're closing holes that used to exist. It's been a real feather in the cap of a lot of security and identity people who have demonstrated real thought leadership, and been good for careers and good for organizations. So I would just encourage people to be open-minded about this as taking it to the next level, not being critical about what you've done up till now.
Okay, so, sounds good. I think it's good advice. There's a question here. Is this research report going to be updated or expanded in the future?
Yeah, I would think so, right? You could expect elusive, the the pace of these audits that we're doing and these identity risk assessments that we're doing is increasing pretty dramatically. And so right now we're busy doing the assessments, doing the audits, rolling out the system to help people get this under control. I would think, within 6 to 8 months, 9 months or so, we may visit again. Worst case would be a year. But yeah, you could expect Elusive to do a follow-up on this. I'm hoping that we can do it in two areas, right? In the next version, I think we want to show how people have matured their practice using our solution.
I think that would be really interesting.
Of the people that have done it, now, what kind of changes have we seen? I think that's going to be the real interesting part to see, is exactly where and by how much. What are the statistics on posture improvement? And then the other side is, okay, we've gone out and done another 1 million or 2 million endpoints. And what are we seeing in the shifts, in the trending of the kinds of identities we consistently see, either unmanaged, misconfigured, or exposed? Absolutely, you can expect more of that from Elusive.
Great. Wade, this was fun.
Always good, Mark.
It is fun chatting with you. I appreciate you sharing both your time and your wisdom today to our audience. I'll there were a couple other questions. I think all of the questions are all available actually there's specifics that are available in the research report. I guess my camera is not making that clear, but it is available on the website. Feel free to download it. Let us know at Elusive if you have any questions about the research, and we wish you the best of success dealing with what is now, right, the #1 attack vector for cyber attackers. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining. Thanks for your questions. And Wade, let's do this again. Yeah, Mark. There's new information coming out of the field. Elusive has a global team working this problem. New information coming out of the field every week. It'd be fun to connect on some of these topics and do shorter, more frequent quick connections on these and try to update folks as we see this landscape playing out. There's a lot of interesting stories to tell. We'll change the names to protect the guilty, and try to keep folks updated on what we're seeing out in the field. Sounds good. And I'm gonna, if you don't mind, I'm gonna invite maybe some other industry, either analysts or partners of ours, as we did in recent calls or webinars, to sort of have them weigh in on this as well. So I think it's going to be fun. Stay tuned all for our next one. Thanks for joining today. Have a great day, everybody.